Welcome to Our Voices on the Yard, where Black artistic excellence meets everyday life. I'm your host, Denise Woods. Join me as we explore and celebrate the achievements of the Black artists that attended conservatories and fine arts programs from around the world, starting with my alma mater, the Juilliard School. Hi, this is Denise Woods. Welcome back to Our Voices on the Yard. This is part 2 of the Lisa Whitfield interview. I hope you were able to join us with part 1, because today is going to knock your socks off. What an incredible woman, musician, mother, wife, humanitarian. She's open, vulnerable, and I think you'll learn something. You'll not only learn something, but you're going to feel a little differently after you've heard what she has to say. So, enjoy. So then you stayed on faculty
That
for
was
how
crazy.
long? And then what did you do? You stayed on faculty, you stayed in New York, you have amazing children. So let's talk about that leg of the journey.
That's kind of the condensed version. When I graduated, I just
Okay.
started freelancing. Actually, I started
Oh,
freelancing my last year at Juilliard, and that was my first. No, that wasn't my first run-in with the dean's office, but it was a situation where I'd been offered a job, and Juilliard has a particular way of looking at things. If you've been offered a job subbing with the New York Philharmonic, of course that's more important than you doing orchestra here. So, yes, you can get out of that concert. And you could get out of certain concerts. There were certain conductors I didn't want to play with. So I would just fill out a waiver and go, nope, not me, not today. Um, so yeah, I had put in a waiver and I was told I couldn't have it. And they were like, well, why do you want to do this? And I was like, I got a job. And they're like, well, what? Did you win a job somewhere? I'm like, no, I'm freelancing and I got a job. And they're like, that's not a sufficient reason.
what?
I said, why? Because it's not the Phil? Because it's not the Met? I had this argument with Juilliard on a number of levels for many, many years. And when they started inviting us to the faculty meetings, when we were on music advancement and pre-college, that was the
Yes.
first time that I aired what I had to say publicly. And it was met with a surprising response. I was actually really, really impressed that it was met with the response it was met with. But I mean, by the other people in the audience, not by the people on stage.
Sure.
Um,
Gotcha.
because, there's this big presentation about how great Juilliard is and all the job opportunities. And, we are really working hard to prepare our students for the 3 areas they go into. Not the top 3, not some of the 3, it's just these.
Wow.
Performing in a top tier orchestra, teaching at the university level, or a top tier solo career.
That's it.
So I stood up. That's it. That's it. Apparently, that's what everybody else at Juilliard did. So, so I stood up with my little. See, this is why I have that T-shirt that says, "I'm not the one you should put on speakerphone," because I proved it right here. I stood up in front of God and everybody, Denise, and I just looked at the person on stage who I'd known for years and had tremendous respect for, and I said, would you like to tell us what the other 97% of us are supposed to do?
Who?
What are we supposed to do? Because, first of all, there aren't that many openings in major orchestras. Second of all, there aren't that many university positions for teaching. And third of all, how many violin soloists does the world really need? I went there and I was mad. I was really mad. I was like, what about those of us
Yes.
who make our career teaching the children who eventually go to those universities? What
Yes.
about those of us who make our career playing as freelancers because either we can't get jobs in these major orchestras or we don't want them. What about us? Does Juilliard not apply to us?
Wow.
And I was really shocked that a large portion of the faculty clapped. I was really shocked.
Wow.
I was very pleased to hear it, but I was really shocked because it
Yes.
was very clear that if you weren't fitting that mold, they didn't really want to talk to you. They didn't want to hear from you.
Mm, mm.
And that was very demoralizing because I was like, okay, I'm not selling jeans at the Gap. I work here. So clearly, you
Yes.
thought something of my abilities that you allow me to teach here. And I'm out here making money playing the viola.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, I
Mm-hmm.
know how to play.
Mm-hmm.
So what about entrepreneurial training? What about
Yes.
that? What about
Yes.
finance training? What about the things that the rest of us need? Because if you're out here with a manager, even if you have a manager, your manager might be ripping you off if you don't know how to count to
That's
10.
right. That's right. That's right. Did, Lisa,
Apparently, my comment
did you
was
see,
not popularly received by the dean.
Lisa,
Yeah,
did you see any
didn't
substantial
go far.
change? Did you see any substantial change administratively over your time there? You just in terms of the ideology behind the pedagogical approach to what it means to teach a student, an artist at Juilliard, a well-rounded artist at Juilliard. Was there any change in the thinking?
Not really. Not in the time I
Okay.
was there. I can't speak for any time. I can't speak for any time after I left. And I'm not going to
Yeah.
say it won't change or it hasn't changed. From what I hear, it has. But in the time I was there, no. And I was there for 18 years. And no,
Yeah.
I did not see a substantial change.
Yeah.
Denise, part of my problem is that I'm very outspoken, and I'm less outspoken now than I was in my 20s because I
Mhm.
still had fucks to give in my 20s. When I turned 50, Denise, when I turned 50, I will tell you somebody must have come in the middle of the night, took my last fuck because I don't give a fuck anymore. I just, I'll say what I have to say, but I don't feel like I need to shout. Now
Yes.
I'll just say what it is, and I'll just keep stepping because
Isn't
it's
that
just like, look,
liberating?
if you don't want to hear what I have to say, fine. It is.
Yes.
It's very liberating. It's
It's so
incredibly liberating.
liberating. It's so liberating.
And
Because
there were
I
so many
agree.
times I felt I couldn't do that at Juilliard.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. Part of the reason
I
why I
felt
left.
silenced a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And I was there from 92 to 2000, 8 years. And in those 8 years, I
Hmm.
never really felt that they heard me as a faculty member. I was the first African
I
American
believe that.
woman on faculty in the drama division, and I never felt that my voice really mattered. And I tried to speak. I tried because I was there in the 90s when a lot of flack was coming toward particularly the African American men in the drama division because it was the
Yeah.
height of the hip hop era. Okay. It was at the height.
Yep.
And so they were being given flack with the way they spoke. And I wanted to say, instead of approaching voice and speech from a position of this faction of the student body is coming from a place of lack, let's just honor that, embrace it, celebrate, and add to what they already have, as opposed to making them feel that what I have is less than. It's not
Right.
worthy of the Juilliard model of the Juilliard actor. And I just was invited to the faculty at another school, and their pedagogical model fit my sensibility. And I had to
That's
go where
great.
I was appreciated, where I was celebrated, where I was heard, because I just could not break through. And now, as you, I hear that things are changing. I see that things are changing, but there's still it's a climb. It's a climb because we have an institution. That Juilliard name that you talked about being like, oh no, everybody knows that name. It's an institution that is steeped in elitism, classism, racism.
Hmm.
And so
Yep.
breaking down those walls, it's a lot. But I have to say, this generation, like you said,
They're pulling it down.
they don't give a
They're tearing it all
they
down.
don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. We don't give a fuck. We tired.
And you know
Let's
what I
do
love,
this.
Denise?
What's that, honey?
The thing I love most about that is that I'm the mother of a person in that generation. And it
I
makes me
know.
thrilled. It makes me
I
thrilled to
know.
know that
Yes.
my daughter is in New York now, living her dream and doing the things
Yes.
that she wants to do. And you better not even look at her like you thinking of getting her in her way.
Okay?
She will flatten you
That's
with
what
a
I'm
look.
talking
She
about.
doesn't even need to put hands on you. She will flatten your ass with a look. And I
Yes.
wish I'd had that confidence at her age. I
Yeah.
didn't. I will, however, I have to tell you this story because this is a quintessential
Come
Juilliard
on.
story. And
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's not about racism as much as it is about sexism and misogyny. And
Ah.
this took this took a person I had a lot of respect for completely off. It threw me off this person for a minute, and I was very hurt by that. But I'm not going to say any names. There are a few people who really disappointed me, but I love them and respect them so much that to say their name feels like a betrayal. So I'm going to keep the name out of it.
Right.
But
Good.
anybody who was
Thank
there
you.
when I was there will know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right around the time at the end of my second year, the Juilliard Orchestra got chosen to be the orchestra in residence for the Avion Festival in France.
Oh my.
And I was chosen to be in the orchestra. Um, yeah, it was great. I brought my husband, and we'd been married 2 days and had our honeymoon with 100 of my closest friends. It was weird. But so I'd gotten chosen to be in the orchestra, and they'd put the seating out. And the person I was supposed to sit with was someone I didn't like. And it was someone who didn't like me either. And I knew this person didn't like me. Um, and I don't have any qualms saying that this person was a complete sexist pig.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no respect for him. But hey, this is a professional training school. I'm going to be professional about this shit. I didn't want to sit
Mm-hmm.
with him, I didn't want to look at him, but it was my job.
Mm-hmm.
So one
Mm-hmm.
day, the dean pulls me aside and says that this individual had come to the dean's office and spoken to them. And the dean said, I understand that you and this other individual don't get along. To which I said, no, we don't. Well, what we've decided to do now, the thing you need to understand about this is that this was the first opportunity I'd had to sit on the first stand. I'd never sat on the first stand in the Juilliard Orchestra yet. And I
Wow.
got to do it that time. I was sitting second chair, the other person was principal. So it wasn't like I was principal It wasn't that, but it was first stand, and it was an experience I had not yet had, and I was very honored to be chosen to do that. And it was
Yes.
rotating first stands. So there were two other co-principals who were in the back when we were in the front, and then when they were in the front, we were in the back. And it was great. So four people got the opportunity to sit first stand that they had not previously had. I was excited.
Right.
That was a large part of why I decided to keep my mouth shut about the whole experience, because okay, fine, I don't like you, but this is first stand. I can learn to live with it.
Mm-hmm.
So the dean said to me, so what we've decided to do is move you to third chair. That would have moved me back a stand.
Of course. Of
And
course.
I I looked at him and I said, so you decided that without speaking to me first? And he said, well, we just wanted to solve the problem. I said, okay, did I come to you and complain about this other person? No. And I don't like him any more than he likes me. But because he decided to come to the office and say things about me, you just decided to solve the problem without approaching me, not to mediate, but just move me back. I said, he's the one complaining. How come you didn't move him? And he, I brought him up short. And I looked at him and I said, let me explain something to you, sir. This is a professional school, and when I leave here, I am sure there will come a day and a time when I am sitting next to some idiot I have no respect for, and I will have to keep my mouth shut and do my job. I consider this practice. This is a professional training school. This is professional training. I didn't say a word about him, and I was ready to sit there and suck it up and do my job. But because he's not professional enough to sit next to me, I'm the one who has to suffer?
Wow.
I said, you go back and tell him I'm not moving. If he doesn't want to sit with me, move him. I had it. I couldn't I couldn't do it, Denise. I was just,
Yes.
whoo, I was mad. It was the
Yes.
injustice of it. It's just
Yes.
like, I don't like you any more than you like me, but you're a
Right?
man and you're going to walk into an office full of men and talk man language and say, the girl got to go. No,
Yes.
no. I may have been
Yes.
born at night, but I wasn't born last night. No, no.
Yes.
You don't like me? You don't want to sit with me? You sit somewhere
Then you
else.
move.
I earned this chair
Yes.
and I'm going to sit my black ass in it. I was so mad. Oh my God. I was so mad. But you know what?
Woo!
We sat
Yes.
together for 2 weeks and he treated me like shit for 2 weeks. And I sat there and did my job and did my
Mm.
job and did my job. And at the
Mm.
very last
Mm.
concert, he looked at me right before we were starting to play, and he looked at me and he goes, I'm sorry for the way I treated you. And I
What?
just looked at him and I said, oh, yeah, he apologized. Yeah, he apologized to me. And I just looked at him and I said, mm hmm. And I just kept playing. I kept warming up because I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him and I didn't care.
Right. You were there to do a job.
I just kept on stepping. I was
Yes.
there to do a job. And
Yes.
the next year, which was my last year, they sat me principal
What?
and I could hear, they sat me principal for one concert and I could hear everybody behind me. I have never felt so many knives in my back at the same time, Denise. I could just feel everybody behind me waiting for me to fail. Everybody behind me just waiting for me to fall down on my ass and prove to everybody that I didn't belong in that chair. I could feel it.
Wow.
And I
Lisa.
sat down. Oh my God. I
Mm,
sat down and I was a mess.
mm,
I was a nervous wreck.
mhm,
And my viola was in the shop. I had to borrow an instrument from the school. And then the guy who was giving out the instruments was just like, well, why do you deserve one of these good Italian instruments? And I'm just like, dude, can you just give me something to play on? Can you just loan me an instrument?
mm,
Like, why do I have to justify myself to you? Just, I have to play. I got a couple of little solos in this damn piece. Can you let me just play? And my stand partner is my friend to this day. I will never forget this. My friend Ralph Ferris, who I love like a brother. And I was humming through something. I was singing through it before we had rehearsal. And Ralph sat down next to me and he put his hand on my leg and he looked at me and he said, Lisa, Lisa, you have to promise me you'll sing to your children when you have babies. You have the most beautiful voice. You have to promise me. And I was like, okay, Ralph, whatever. Um, but he was kind. He was kind to me. And it wasn't a game, it wasn't a front.
mhm,
He was just genuinely one of the most kind human beings. And he encouraged me and he played with me. And
mm,
we had an amazing experience. And I was so, he lifted me up. And
mm,
I gave him a big hug after and I thanked him and I said, I couldn't have done this without you
mm.
because they were all waiting. They were all waiting for me to fall down, and you were the only one who looked at me and believed I could do it. And we have been friends ever since that day. Ever since those days, we have been friends. Ralph, it was funny when I had my daughter, I contacted him and I said, I just wanted to let you know I sang to my babies. And he plays in a quartet that was in residence at Denison University here in Ohio.
Mhm.
And that's where my daughter went to college. It's where my daughter did her undergrad.
Wow.
And I put I put on social media that she had chosen to go to Denison. And out of nowhere, I get this text. I'm calling you tonight. I'm like, okay. He calls me up and he goes, okay, your daughter is going to be here for 4 years. Tell me what I need to know to be you for the next 4 years. What do I need to do for her? What
Oh
does she
my
need? How can I
gosh.
be you? I need you to know your daughter is safe. I need you to know your daughter will be fine. I will take care of her. I will be sure she meets everybody she needs to meet. And he did.
Mm,
He did. This
mm,
I don't have I don't have a lot of people I'm in touch with from Juilliard on a regular basis. There are a few. Mostly it's casual online stuff, but there are a
mhm.
couple people in my life who have just been there, who've just
Yeah.
been there to the point I barely remember a day in my life when they weren't there. And
Wow.
Ralph is one of those people. He's one of the good
Lisa,
ones. He really
Lisa,
he's
thank
just
you.
he was just a real friend
Yeah.
and not a judge, not somebody who looked at me as less than, not somebody who treated me like I didn't belong. He was just, yeah, I'm glad you're here, Lisa. And we would talk and we still talk, and he's a wonderful person. And I love him like I love a little brother. He's just a
Ah,
great guy. And now
you know,
he and my daughter are both in New York and he hangs out with her.
I love it.
It's
I
great.
love it. I
I
love
do.
it.
I
Lisa,
love it too. Oh my God.
I have to say that in the drama division, when I was at Juilliard in the drama division in 1975, my first year, my My class was group 8. You know, we had groups. I was group 8. I'm fond of saying
Hmm.
single digits because the significance, I do believe the first
Right.
year is group 55. Can you believe it? Group 55 is the first year this year. And I was group 8.
Wow.
And I want to tell you, and your buddy's name is Ralph Ferris. Ralph Ferris is
Ralph
his name.
Ferris.
My
Hmm.
entire class of group 8 was filled with Ralph Ferrises. I'm so blessed.
Oh,
The
you
entire
are.
company, the entire class. We are so close. Whenever there was a mishap or an atrocity or something that we could not stomach for that happened with one of us, we all felt it. We all fought against it,
Mm.
be it racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia. Oh my gosh, it was crazy. The homophobia
Mm.
in the drama division. I mean, it was, and I mean every ism that could possibly have we be dealt with
Right.
as young artists we were dealing with. And my class, my group 8, and we are very close to this day. And I can't
Mm.
speak for the groups that came before or after, although I will say
Right.
that all of the sisters and brothers that were before me or after me, it's like you, Lisa. When we get in touch with each other, we don't skip a beat because we have that thing in
Right.
common. We have this bond, this connection. We may talk, maybe. I can count on one hand how many times I've spoken to Lisa Gay Hamilton or Lorraine Toussaint. And these sisters were at Juilliard
Right.
after me, but they're
Right.
wonderful actresses with great careers. And we talk, and it's like we had just spoken yesterday because there's this they are my Ralph Ferris, and I
Right.
have to say, in my experience, albeit it was not an easy one for a lot of reasons, but the community in the drama division, the community that we all needed each other. There were no
Mhm.
knives out. There was no stabbing in the back. We were there. I mean,
Mm.
we just that's all we had was each other because the faculty was busy stabbing us in the back. All of us, the faculty was
Right.
busy trying to cut people and tell us we weren't, so
Wow.
all we had was each other. And those bonds were
Mm.
so rich, and just the soil was so fertile for whatever creativity we couldn't find or from the faculty, or any kind of love and camaraderie that some of us were missing from the faculty. We gave
Hmm.
it to each other. It was a special time, albeit it was, I'm going to add this,
That's a
it was
blessing.
fraught with a true blessing. It was fraught with drugs and alcohol because it was the 70s. But baby, we loved each
Yeah.
other. We loved on each other. I need to bring into the conversation this other faction of you, and you can talk more about your wonderful daughter and your son and your husband in this context. What is and you?
Oh, for you.
For you. Thank
For
you. Not
you.
and you.
Yes.
For you. Sorry. What is
No, it's
for
okay.
you? And I need
It's
you I
okay.
need you to spell it for me. Uh-huh.
FOREWE.
Okay.
Because I love a good pun. Um, well,
And pun is intended
that's
here.
wow.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes. Oh, it's very much intended here. It's a yarn shop, and it's my yarn shop. It's the yarn shop I own here in lovely rural Ohio in Oberlin, which I realized a couple years ago that I have, other than living in Philadelphia where I grew up, I have always lived in one of the two places I went to school. I
Wow.
went to Oberlin, I live in Oberlin. I went to Juilliard, I lived in New York. That's it. I
Right.
haven't lived anywhere else.
Yes.
Um, so we moved back here in 2008. Um, my daughter was born in 98. My son was born in 2003. And, well, you know what the economy started to do in 2006, 7. You can
Do
see
I?
things. I always tell people artists are the first ones to feel a recession coming
Oh my
because you can
gosh.
see the cutbacks. You can
Yeah.
see the things that are disappearing. So we actually moved like weeks before. We moved in September of 2008, just as things were falling apart. And, uh, I continued my career as a musician. I'd been reasonably successful playing in New York, and I parlayed that into reasonable success here.
Hmm.
And I've had a few jobs where I've worked for some men of questionable intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And I got tired of that. I got really tired of that.
Yes.
Um, so I'm also getting older, and I have arthritis in my lower back and both shoulders and one of my fingers on my right hand. And I can still play. That's not a problem. I still enjoy playing. But I know that there is a time limit on how much longer I can do this for a living. And so I started to think about what makes me happy.
Mm.
I am a creative person by nature. It is what I am. Um, being a math teacher was not an option. That was not a thing. Um, not going to happen. And I had, you know, my daughter left home at 18 to go to college, and she's never lived with us since. She was very much like me in that regard. She just left and kept on stepping. And
Yep.
I miss her terribly. She and I are very, very close, and it is hard to be without her. But if it means she's out
Mm-hmm.
there doing her, I will support her in the ways I did not get supported. My
Yep.
parents never appreciated what I did with my life, and I swear they died not understanding it.
Mm. Mm.
But I love my children and I want them to be happy. And if that's something I understand, fine. And if it's something that I don't understand, fine. Doesn't matter what I understand. What matters is that they be able to pursue what they do.
That's right.
And my daughter's she's a talented artist, violinist, singer. This child is a polymath. I swear, there's very little I've ever seen that she couldn't do. And she could have
Mm.
become a professional musician if she really wanted to. I think she just saw how much I struggled and was just like, nah, I'm out. And
Mm-hmm.
the funny thing, Denise, is that she grew up at Juilliard. She grew up at Juilliard. I was still there. She was born in 98. I was there for 10 years after I gave birth. She came with me to work.
Yeah.
She knew that building like it was her home.
Right.
She was more at home at Juilliard as a child than I ever was as a grown woman. That was
Mm-hmm.
hilarious to me. That in all of my struggles, I had managed to create a child who saw Juilliard as just another place. It wasn't until she got much older that she realized it was an impressive thing that her mother had gone to Juilliard. Because she walked into a play date once when she was 3, and she looked around and she goes, "Where's your mother's viola?" That's what mommies do. Mommies play the viola. So it took a minute. She's like, "Wait, not all
Yes.
mommies play the viola?" I'm like, "No, baby. No, they don't all do that." Um, my son, my son has been my greatest joy and my greatest sorrow in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
He was diagnosed with autism when he was 3.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and life has just never been the typical path for him. And that's been
Yes.
hard. It's not impossible because, if you can survive being a black woman at Juilliard in the early 90s, you can really do just about anything because I'm not dead yet. I am still here. I am
Yes.
still here.
We
So,
need to put that on a t-shirt. We need to put that on a t-shirt.
I went to Juilliard and I'm still alive. It feels like that some days. I mean, not so much anymore, but in the early days, it was like, Jesus, how did I survive this?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
the chronic illnesses, the therapy. I
Yeah.
mean, whoo!
Yeah.
I was diagnosed
Yeah.
with IBS at 26, and I was like, "Oh, I
Oh.
got that at Juilliard along with the degree." For years, I called my Juilliard diploma the receipt.
The receipt.
I am not playing with you. I called it the receipt because I was just like, I'm glad they wrote me a receipt for all the shit they put me through. Woo,
Well,
child.
I'm going to tell you full disclosure. I graduated from Juilliard in 1979.
Hmm.
I did not step foot back in the building until 1992. I couldn't. I
I
just
hear you.
couldn't. And I lived in New York. See, no, I didn't move
Mm.
away from New I lived in New York. I just could not go back. I could not go
Wow.
back. It was just and and I have to say, by all accounts, I did not have, as experiences go, objectively speaking, mine was not
Hmm.
one of the worst ones because I have heard stories, have seen stories, but even
Oh yeah.
at that, it was so traumatic. I would get the heebie jeebies when I'd go down Broadway and 66th, 65th Street. I just go,
Mm.
oh.
I got across the street. I got across the street. I can't do
I
it.
got to cross the street. It's intense. It's
It
intense. And
is.
like I said, I did not have one of the more horrific experiences because there have
Right.
been, you know,
Oh, they're
it
horror
really
stories.
is. There are horror stories. There
Yeah.
are, unfortunately. And it's so interesting because this is part of the reason why I want to do it, because I want to talk about it. I want to talk
Right.
about the good, the bad, the ugly, and I want to talk about the celebration. We are celebrating you, Lisa Whitfield. We are celebrating you. That's what
Thank
this
you.
is. It's a celebration. This first season is celebrating these folks that I knew at Juilliard to be the shit. Really. Really. I
I
mean,
never
the
thought of
shit.
myself that way when I was at Juilliard at all.
I know you did
And
not, but I saw you. I saw you. I saw you, sis. And
thank
I
you.
and I see you now and I celebrate you. And I'm so
Thank you.
proud of not just the artist that you've become, but the mother and the entrepreneur and this woman who has given herself agency by giving voice to people of color in the fiber community. Like, I mean, that's huge. That's huge.
You know, I think that part of who I am was always going to give a voice to people of color in any community, no matter what
Yeah.
community that was. Um, I mean, the first fight I had to have was about my mother telling me that black people didn't play the violin. So
Mhm.
I had to fight for myself as a little kid of color playing the violin. So that was probably the first battle I ever had to have about it, you know? And,
Mhm.
I wasn't the first black woman to go to Juilliard to play a stringed instrument. I know I'm not because once I graduated, there was this whole community of people who had gone to major conservatories, some of them Juilliard, who knew who I was before I knew they existed.
Wow.
And they're the ones that carried me into a new realm musically and
Yes.
professionally. and started to hire me for things.
Yes.
My very first Broadway show came about because someone who had gone to Juilliard, a violist, hired me to sub for him. So yeah, the black community embraced me at Juilliard and continued to embrace me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm going to tell
even
you, my speech teacher at
Mhm.
Juilliard, Tim Monick, became my mentor and gave me my first major film as a dialect coach, which was Ali, starring Will
Mm.
Smith. He couldn't do it because
You did the
Scorsese
dialect
called
coaching
him.
for that?
Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
My Juilliard teacher, Scorsese called him to do Gangs of New York. He told Michael
Hmm.
Mann, the director, the only person I could hand this off to is Denise Woods.
And
And
there you were.
that's how my Hollywood dialect coaching came about because of my teacher at Juilliard, Tim Monick,
Mm.
who I dedicated my book to. I dedicated my first book to my mother, my aunt Sylvia, the owner of Sylvia's restaurant, I have to say, so people know, let you know that you didn't know.
I had no idea. That's amazing. Good for you.
See that I won't say in conversation because I don't want to sound like I'm bragging. Oh yeah, well
Right.
my aunt owns Aunt Sylvia's, right? I don't say that, but I say it in this context because I want people to understand how important these connections, these Juilliard connections are. So I dedicate my first book to my mother, my aunt Sylvia, and Tim Monick. And when he saw it, he just
Mm.
broke down and started crying. And I said, this your tutelage and your mentorship means everything to me. Everything. I mean,
Right.
he opened the door in Hollywood and gave me that first major job. I mean, I had been coaching before, but this was a major one that put me on the map. And so these Juilliard connections, be they all black or black white, these Juilliard connections and the relationships that we forged, the bonds
Yeah,
that we forged are lifetime. And I'm so glad to hear you speak about it, to speak about the jobs
they
and
are.
the people that knew who you were before you knew who they were. It's amazing.
It was an intense experience and a wonderful experience because all of my camaraderie with other people of color was outside of being a string player. And
Yes.
once I graduated, I got that last piece that had been missing. It was an entire
Mm,
family of string players. And it was just,
mm,
now I understand. It was an
yeah.
understanding that sort of unfolded like a flower opening, and then when the flower was
Yes.
finally completely open, it was just like, I'm home. I'm okay. And it took a long time, and it took a long time and a lot of booze, which I definitely had a problem with. Definitely had a problem with. I did some of my most intense drinking when I was a student at Juilliard. In fact, the
Me
very first
too.
time I remember drinking to the point I threw up was at Juilliard, and it was the night that that the United States declared war in the Iraq War in 1991.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. I will never forget that night because we played Mahler 4, and we were just about to start playing, and the president came out and stood on the stage at Avery Fisher and announced that we had just gone to war. And it was the
Wow.
most
Oh my
surreal
God.
experience. And at the party, I don't remember how much I drank.
Yeah.
I do not remember how much I drank. I do remember having to at least once have to bunk on somebody's floor because I was so messed up.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
definitely,
It
there
was
were bad
I have
habits
to
that
say,
came from being a student
I know
at
that
Juilliard.
I know that in the drama division it was part of the culture. Drinking more. I mean, the drug culture was there, but alcohol was everywhere. I mean, and we smoked, and
Right.
in the 70s we smoked in the buildings. Our teachers smoked in the classrooms. It
Right.
was part of the culture. I can say that more than half of my class, of more than half of group 8, maybe not more than half, but certainly half of group 8 is in recovery, active recovery, because it was so a
Well,
part of the
yeah.
culture. Yeah.
I am in active recovery. I had my last drink. I've been sober since January 17th, 2010.
Good for
And I became
you.
sober for my kids.
Yes.
I realized I had a problem and I finally did something about it. But Juilliard was definitely a huge factor in the amount I drank. It became that social lubricant that helped me get past those anxieties and feelings of not belonging.
Yes.
Um, it also allowed me to just behave badly and have an excuse. And that is a sad thing that I
Wow.
felt I needed to do that. But yeah, I drank a lot. I drank a lot and I went to a lot of parties, a
Mhm.
whole lot of parties.
Mhm. It was part of the culture.
And I'm
It was
glad that
part of
that
the culture.
changed. It definitely was part of, but those Juilliard parties in the early 90s were a mess. They were so much fun because the dancers voguing, it was just amazing.
I never
It was
went.
everything you wanted
I
in a party.
never partied with my students. I never I just didn't want to see them. I was like, "Nope. I don't want nope. Nope. I don't want to
You
see you
you
in
were
that light."
right not
Yeah.
to. You were definitely right not to because there was some poor
Yes.
behavior, I will say. There was poor behavior.
Lisa,
And
we
some
are
of it may have
winding
been mine. Might have
we
been
are
mine.
winding
Who
down. We
knows?
are so winding down. I want to ask you a couple of questions in the wind down. First
Yes.
question, and I know you will have this answer right away. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell Lisa, that little girl that picked up that violin
Mm.
and went to her mom and said, "I want to play this." And her mom said, "Black people don't do this." What would this Lisa say? Now, Lisa, who is Imani's mom, Lisa, who's in recovery, been in recovery for 12 years, what would this Lisa say to her mom?
I probably would look at her and say, "You're full of shit." I'd probably just look at her and go, "You're full of shit." Um, because yeah, you're full of shit. That's not true. I mean, the only thing that comes to mind is like I had a friend whose family was all from the Caribbean, and this was the one thing my friend said that would guaranteed to crack me up. You lie, you lie, because yeah, it's not true. It's not
Yes,
true. So
yes,
that's the thing I
yes,
would say. I would go, you're full of
yes,
shit.
you're
You're lying.
lying.
It's not true. You lie.
Okay, all
It's not
right.
true.
You know that wonderful saying, "I wouldn't take nothing for this journey." I wouldn't take nothing
Mm.
for this journey. Is there one thing that you would have changed? If you could have changed a little, you could have gone left as opposed to right. If you could have tweaked this as opposed to that. Is there anything? Would you have changed anything in this journey, sweetheart?
I don't know why I'm stumped by that question because I'm pretty sure I knew you were going to ask me that.
You know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because I ask all of my guests this question. And for some reason
Hmm.
today, this question is coming from a deeper place because you, sis, have taken this, I don't even want to call it an interview, this conversation to a whole nother level of transparency that has blessed me so deeply. And I just thank you. And so that question comes from a really, really deep place of, because the good, the bad, the ugly, because I too
Hmm.
got sober in 1990. So by the time I showed up to Juilliard, girl, I was already clean and sober and I did it for my child who was 18 months at the time, because all of those, the
Mm.
pain of growing pain and pains of being an actress and pains of being a woman and a marriage that had failed or in my mind failed, all of that stuff, that baggage that I was toting around. I said to myself, I will not go into this new decade with this monkey on my back. And so I got clean and sober in 1990. And our
And it's funny,
conversation,
I said the same thing
so
20
did I.
years later.
Come on, girl.
I got sober
Yes.
in 2010. It was 20 years
Yes. I
later.
will
Yeah,
not go into another
that's funny.
decade. I will not bring a decade in like this.
Yep.
Yes.
No. And it was right after the new year, too. So I definitely felt that it was time to just wipe the slate clean. So I understand that. If I
Absolutely.
were to take a different step, any kind of different step, Denise, first of all, this conversation is a blessing to me, too. And I want you to know that. It has never been easy for me to talk about Juilliard and the imprint it left on my life. And it left a huge imprint on my life because Juilliard was my entire adult experience from age 22 to age 40. That was my
Yes.
life. So it has been very difficult to step back and talk about it and talk about what it left. You know, the impact, the imprint, the residue, whatever you want to call it, it left something here that makes me who I am. So, in that way, I
Yes.
would never
Yes.
change anything because I
Yes.
wouldn't be me if I
Yes.
hadn't done it.
Yes.
If I had one
Yes.
thing to change, it would have been a step I took before Juilliard, and it would have been to get that other degree from Oberlin.
Oh,
That is the one regret I have, that I did not go on to finish that bachelor's degree from Oberlin, from the college.
yes.
And there are days when I think I might still do something just to have an
Mm-hmm.
academic degree that's not a music degree.
Yes.
But that has more to do with my feelings of myself and being worthy intellectually, not artistically.
Yeah. I know that. I went back and got my master's degree in education, sweetheart, for that same reason, because I
Oh,
just did
wow.
not feel, oh yeah, I didn't feel intellectually educated. We went to conservatory. I had never taken a
Right.
psychology class. I had never taken a math class. So I really felt that I needed that piece. And that very few people know that I have a master's degree in, in teaching,
That's
in
amazing.
education.
Yeah.
I just didn't
And that's an
feel like I
incredible thing to have it in too.
it is. It is. I'm
Yeah.
blessed. I'm blessed. And I'm blessed that I did it at a
As an
time, where I could, before online. This was before online and all of, this was before
right.
computers. Okay. And I would just show up to class, do my work, hand in my papers, and jet. So it
Yep.
was easy. It was easy. Sweetheart, we are winding down. This has just been incredible. I can't thank you enough,
Thank
sis.
you.
I can't thank you enough. Would you come back? Would you come back?
All you have to do is ask. For you, I would do
Yes.
anything.
Sweetheart, thank you, because I need us to sit in a room. This is great, but I need to get a group of us in a room.
Yes.
Okay? I need to get a
Oh,
group of us
wow.
in
That
a
would be an
room. And I'm not
experience.
going to mention the names right now, but when I do mention the names, you're going to go, I'll be there, because you know them all. They have all said, Denise, just call me. I'm just cherry picking the people to put in a room, girl.
Denise,
Can you
let me just say
imagine
this.
us all in a room?
No. Well, yes and no. but honestly, Denise, let me just say this. I was unaware of the blessing I was receiving the day I met you. I did not
Wow.
understand or know what you would mean to me, and that we would be sitting here 30 years after we met having this conversation, and that I could share my experience with someone who really was there for so much of it and saw me. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to know that somebody hears you, that somebody sees you, that somebody believes you when you
Yeah.
have been through so many experiences that people today just go, that doesn't happen. Stop complaining. Shut up and write. Shut up and play your instrument. Shut up and dribble. It's important that we be seen and heard.
Yes.
I don't want a pity party. I
Yes. Come
don't
on.
want I don't want anybody playing any tiny violins for me. I just want respect. I've been on a journey. Don't tell me I haven't been on it, and respect me. That's it. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm not asking for anything I haven't earned, but I've earned respect. That much I
Yeah.
know. I have done what I've done and I don't regret it. I've been on this journey. Respect my footsteps. Just respect that I took those steps so somebody
Yes.
behind me could follow them. And that
Yes.
is what I did. That's all I, and that's the only thing I needed to do. I had the career I wanted to have, Denise. I'm
Yep.
happy with what I did. I'm happy that I was able to have a family and raise children to adulthood. And now I can own a yarn shop because I feel like it, damn it.
Right.
That's that's success to me. That I get to live in my joy. That is success to me. So thank you. And anything you need, I'm there. You don't even need to tell me who else is coming. I don't care. You don't need to tell me who else is coming. I'm coming for you. The rest of it's set dressing. Those are extras. You're the leading lady.
You have said it all. I have nothing else to say but love. I love you. Thank you, ladies
I
and
love you too,
gentlemen, for
Denise.
joining
Thank
us.
you.
This was wonderful. Thank you, Lisa Whitfield. Lisa Whitfield.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you. I hope you've learned something. I hope you feel enlightened. I hope you feel lighter than you did before you entered. Subscribe and leave us a review. Tell us what you liked. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Tell us who you'd want to see. This is Denise Wood saying, see you next time.